Welcome to another episode of CN Talks. Today, we are pleased to have with us Mr. Vlassis Papapanagis, COO of Tototheo Global, to discuss how digital transformation is reshaping the maritime cyber risk landscape. Right now, from connectivity and navigation, security to cyber resilience, we're going to explore in our discussion the challenges and also the opportunities facing shipping in an increasingly, we can say, connected world. So we can start if you're ready. Shipping has embraced digital transformation at an unprecedented pace with satellite communications, 5G, IoT, and its computing becoming increasingly integrated into vessel operations. Has the industry understood how these technologies have fundamentally reshaped its cyber risk landscape?
So that's very true. The maritime industry has made a remarkable progress in adapting digital technologies. For example, you mentioned already IoT, satellite communications, cloud platforms, enable equipment. So all these are very sophisticated, let's say, solutions which pretty much exist in most of the modern, let's say, vessel operations. And to be very frank, the value of those technologies is that they actually help the ship owners to improve efficiency and safety and sustainability and compliance. Of course, while the industry understands the digitalization, importance, at the same time that brings potential cyber risk. Historically, as we know, ships operating very much like an isolated environment. And there's still, cases where some of the vessels, they operate the same way. But of course, today, exactly because of satellite communication, especially with LEO, we are seeing, highly connected ecosystems where obviously IT and OT navigation technologies are all part of one, let's say, big network. So every new connection point, any device application pretty much can potentially expand the potential of an attack. All right. So what makes the challenge particularly complex that cyber risk is no longer just an IT issue. Cyber, let's say, incidents can happen across, let's say, various, let's say, equipment, operational, vessel safety, cargo operations. So as a result, cyber resilience must be embedded in the entire life cycle of the digital transformation, not to be just completely independent or just becomes as an afterthought. So that's why, as Tototheo Global, our responsibility is obviously to educate the customers, but at the same time to create awareness of what exactly they need to do and how they should be adapting those digital solutions on the vessel, having in mind that obviously cybersecurity is very, very key, and all this has to be part of a plan. So the industry digital journey is far from over. And of course, as we are talking about artificial intelligence and autonomous systems and many other advanced analytics, this connectivity becomes very, very key, and especially cyber resilience becomes very, very key. So the answer is that, let's say, the technology and let's say, the cyber resilience must be part of the plan of the organization. It's, definitely shouldn't, scare the ship owners and ship managers because of the benefits of the digitalization, but it has to follow a specific plan, making sure that let's say, you manage potential cyber risk at sea, where obviously safety is key for the crew and the vessel and many other, let's say, parameters.
All right. So, okay, I understand. Thank you for this. Let's say right now, many shipping companies still treat cybersecurity as a separate IT function. In today's, as we say, highly connected environment, is that distinction between IT, operational technology, and navigation system still valid?
To be frank, there is still, let's say, not so much maturity. Things are changing, of course, in let's say in the ears and the minds of the respective, let's say, people who have the responsibility about cyber technology and securing the vessels. But we still see that, while the vessels and the ship owners and the IT departments have done, let's say, significant progress in the IT, we don't see exactly the same on the OT. But again, I'm just saying that we definitely, see now that the mind changes and understand that, not only from a compliance perspective, they need to treat both, let's say, as two interconnected, to connect parameters that actually affect the operational, let's say, of the systems and obviously of the vessel. So cybersecurity cannot be viewed only as an IT responsibility. A cyber incident that begins with a compromised, for example, email account or a third-party remote access connection can affect operational systems, navigation functions, and business continuity. So the potential consequences extend well beyond data loss and can impact, as I mentioned before, the safety and the compliance and the commercial operations. So what we are seeing now across the maritime industry is a shift toward a more, let's say, holistic approach for cyber resilience. Rather than managing only IT or OT and navigation systems as separate security silos, we definitely see that the market is more mature and is actually adapting a more holistic approach. So for us, again, as Tototheo Global, we believe that cybersecurity should be treated as an operational business issue and not just only a technology issue.
All right. I think that it's really positive and important to hear that the market is mature right now for something like that.
Is actually getting more mature and actually listening, to these, let's say, actual issues. And again, obviously, the compliance and the regulation for the new builds pretty much pushing the industry to change and do this shift. But we starting seeing that, they're open, to start considering a holistic approach for both IT and OT, even for the existing fleet. It just takes some time, actually, to really get there.
Yes, I understand, and yes, I know, but that matters that the market is mature, the industry is pushing, so I think that's a really good. So right now, maritime cyber incidents continue to rise, while attacks targeting operational technology are becoming more sophisticated. In your view, where are the industry's more significant vulnerabilities today? In technology itself, in processes, or in human decision making?
I think all three elements play an important role. Technology obviously has evolved a lot, especially in the maritime sector, and has become undoubtedly, quite complex. And especially if you see the modern vessels and the modern fleets, they rely on interconnect IT and OT and communication systems, and often integrating equipment from multiple vendors and legacy systems can be, let's say, an area that perhaps can put, let's say, the vessel in a risk. So managing different technologies is one element, and obviously, if you consider companies, ship ownership managers who have, let's say, smaller fleets, and obviously they don't have a lot of people in the IT, it becomes very, very difficult to really manage and be up to date with the technology changes. So that's one, let's say, part of the equation. Obviously, at the same time, processes. We see that sometimes, there's a struggle to keep pace with digital transformation. So there's a lot of challenge around, let's say, asset inventory management, access control, software patching, response preparedness. So as the vessels become more connected, and this is the reality, especially with LEO, organizations need governance and operational procedures. And we see that still there's a lot of room for improvement. And lastly, key in any situations, obviously the crew and the human element, because no matter what kind of technology you have on board the vessels, pretty much your crew is your human firewall. So the more prepared they are, the more educated and trained they are, when something happens, at least you are in a, let's say, in a good place, meaning that they can obviously take the right measures and they will do proactively what they need to do to make sure that, they minimize the risk. So the human element is key. And again, we see that, let's say, the ship owners, the ship managers really try to educate and, spend a big, let's say, part of implementing, let's say, a whole cyber technology infrastructure to really make sure that the people are actually ready and equipped, to do what to do when things happen or when something bad can happen. So this is the encouraging trend. But again, managing all these three elements still becomes a little bit complex,
Yes.
for most of the customers.
Okay, I understand. So we can say it's a combination of
It's a combination of all
this.
this.
Okay,
Yes.
and the key, we can say, it's the education of people and crew.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So GPS spoofing and jamming are now being reported far beyond traditional conflict zones. Has shipping reached a point where cyber risk and navigational risk can no longer be considered as separate challenges?
Again, I think pretty much what we discussed before, they can be completely isolated, let's say, silo cases. They have to be, again, looked as one, let's say, from the, let's say, the technology standpoint, from the process standpoint, and obviously, from the human element standpoint. You can just treat, technology completely siloed, because this is what can actually, let's say, increase the potential risk and obviously putting the vessel and the operations, the safety of the vessel, the crew at risk.
Okay. Right now, modern vessels depend on constant flow of data between systems such as ECDIS, AIS, bridge equipment, fleet management platforms, and onboard communications. What are the potential consequences when a single compromised data source enters the ecosystem?
Okay. Look, one of the defining characteristics of modern shipping is that vessels have evolved from being standalone assets. Again, this is the majority of the situation. So pretty much now we're talking about floating data ecosystems or data, let's say, centers. So information is constantly, let's say, moving and exchange between different systems. You mentioned very well, bridge systems, ACTIS, AIS, engine monitoring platforms, and so on and so forth. So the challenge is that when a single data source is compromised, whether through a cyber attack or a spoofing event or a human error, then the impact can actually extend beyond the originating system, exactly because all of the systems are pretty much interconnected at a great, let's say, scale. So the consequences can range from relatively minor operational disruptions to significant safety and commercial risk. So, for example, compromised positioning data could affect the navigation of the vessel. So if there's like a jamming or a spoofing, and the vessel is in the middle of the sea, if actually they cannot, let's say, understand where exactly they are, this can create, let's say, a navigational issue. And of course, other than the operation of the safety, can also increase the fuel consumption, it can create delays and many other things. So again, that's why, cybersecurity is increasing about data integrity, not just about the system availability. So organizations, let's say, need to make sure that the systems remain operational while providing inaccurate information at any, let's say, time. So at Tototheo, again, we believe that the focus should be building a resilience into the entire data chain. So that means that ensuring, visibility across connected systems, validating the critical information from multiple sources, securing the communications. All these are very, very important assets. And as shipping becomes more data-driven, protecting the integrity of the information is becoming very, very important. It's like protecting the infrastructure that carries it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for this. For years, the industry's cybersecurity strategy has largely focused on building stronger layers of protection. Yet, attacks continue to increase. Is shipping still relying too heavily on a defensive mindset rather than preparing for disruption and recovery?
So, as we discussed previously, the threat landscape is evolving very, very fast. And again, we must not forget that the attack is becoming more sophisticated, and vessels and shore environments are more connected than ever. And obviously, the potential entry points can always, let's say, continue to grow. So in that context, cybersecurity can no longer be measured solely by how effectively we keep threats out. It must also be measured by how effectively we continue operating when something goes wrong. So I believe that the industry, as I mentioned before, is definitely recognizing this shift, and the conversation is moving from pure prevention towards cyber resilience. So that means that accepting that disruptions may occur at any time and ensuring that vessels and crews and the shore teams are prepared to identify, obviously, detect and respond and contain, let's say, those incidents is very, very important. So shipping, exactly because of all these, let's say, incidents, the operation of the ship, of the vessel, the navigation, the cargo movements, all these play important role. And the question is no longer just how we stop the attack, but how to maintain operational continuity if an attack happens. So again, we see that resilience as a combination of technology and process and people is key. So strong defenses remain essential, but organizations also need visibility of their assets, recovery procedures, and backup communication strategies, so that they can pretty much be, let's say, operational and effective in all potential scenarios.
All right. Okay. I said that we mentioned also earlier what I'm gonna ask right now. Tototheo Global speaks about resilience rather than protection alone. What does a truly resilient vessel or fleet look like in practice, and how does differ from a traditional cybersecure one?
So let's say a truly resilient vessel or a fleet is not defined by the belief that it can prevent every cyber incident. It is defined by its ability to continue operating safely and effectively when disruptions occur, whether those disruptions, let's say, stem from cyber attacks, communication outages, GPS interference, system failures, or any other personal challenges. So in practice, resilience starts with visibility. So operations need to understand what assets are connected, how the systems interact, where are the dependencies, and without having this visibility, it becomes difficult to assess the risk and respond effectively when something goes wrong. So resilience requires the ability to detect anomalies quickly, validate critical information. It means having contingency plans, as I mentioned before, backup communication. So that's why having a hybrid connectivity is key. So you don't rely only one connectivity, you have multiple connectivity links. And of course, trained personnel who knows how to respond when, let's say, a digital system is degraded or unavailable. So resilience is not just a vessel level capability. It extends across the entire fleet and the shore operation as well, the shore organization. A resilient fleet can maintain situational awareness, coordinate response between ship and shore, isolate affect systems, and recover operations without causing, let's say, disruption to customers, crew, or commercial activities. So at Tototheo Global, we see resilience as the outcome of combining secure connectivity, operational visibility, robust processes, and of course, prepare people. It's not just a product of a signal technology layer. It's an orchestrated capability that enables vessels and fleets to adapt, to respond in an increasingly complex digital environment.
All right, so I understand that it's something holistic, as we said also before, and the key is to the operations continue at any disruption, and the prevention, we can say, it's the education for all of this and the combination.
It's the prevention pretty much comes as long as you have the right process in place, and obviously you have, let's say, the staff trained, and pretty much, you know, having, let's say, the technology obviously in place, you can proactively detect potential risks. But then when something happens, exactly because you have, let's say, all in one place and everything is orchestrated, pretty much you can manage and minimize the potential exposure you may have on a specific system or, let's say, the vessel.
Okay.
And you know, this is and our responsibility, obviously, as a technology provider is, of course, you know, to educate our customers and consult our customers. Technology exists. It's just a matter of how you orchestrate the technology and how you help the customer, let's say, develop the right infrastructure on the vessel in order for them, you know, to let's say, to secure the operation. So our responsibility not just only to provide the technology, but also to cover the other two issues, which is the procedures and the training as part of the consulting, and obviously, let's say, of the training of the let's say of the crew, to make sure they can actually be 100% on top of the things when, you know, these things happen.
Okay, I understand. As right now vessels become increasingly connected, as we say, and data-driven, how can ship owners right now strike the right balance between unlocking operational efficiencies and avoiding the creation of the new cyber and operational vulnerabilities?
Look, again, what we discussed before is that you cannot, let's say, treat a specific application, these solutions in a silo. So all this has to take into consideration the cybersecurity element and obviously the right infrastructure on board the vessel. So it doesn't mean that you will, let's say, compromise let's say, at any mean, you know, the vessel. It just have, when you're actually, let's say, investigating or you're testing a new technology, other than the specific use case, for example, it may be a technology that can help the vessel, you know, let's say, save fuel consumption, which is very, very critical because obviously shipping is a very, let's say, demanding and a very competitive market. Of course, you know, saving money is key for the ship owners, but you will never sacrifice the adoption of a system with all the potential benefits without also considering the potential risks or how this application is integrated with the technology and the connectivity of the vessel, because you're going to make sure that there is a cybersecurity layer that covers, let's say, this specific application and will not expose the vessel to any security threat. So again, as part of an IT project, all these components need to be, let's say, under the radar before obviously adapting any solution, before actually, let's say, using those solutions on the vessel or on the shore.
Okay. We know that the industry is increasingly adopting artificial intelligence. Automation and also advanced analytics to support operational decision making. Do these technologies strengthen resilience, or do they introduce also new risks that shipping may not yet fully appreciate?
Look, artificial intelligence and automation and advanced analytics, they have a very big, let's say, potential. There's a lot of, let's say, discussion, not only in shipping, but also in other markets. There are solutions right now that, they start utilizing AI, and obviously many applications aboard the vessel right now, they generate a lot of data. I think what we see right now is that while, let's say, there's an appetite for utilize these technologies, we still don't see, or at least, we don't see all these benefits at the biggest scale from, let's say, the results of investing in those technologies. Not talking about only the adaptation, but also if you adapt the technology, then how, easily, how quickly you have an ROI. So, of course, on the positive side, this technology can significantly enhance situational awareness and decision making, because we're talking about AI, data and analytics. But however, every new layer of intelligence it also introduces new dependencies. So the effectiveness of artificial intelligence and obviously automated systems and the data quality and the integrity resulting in, let's say, in new issues, some of which the shipping industry is not yet prepared. So there's let's say, always a question, how much we can see the results out of all this investment, or how quickly, AI and all this technology can be utilized, in shipping. From a cyber perspective, also can become part of an attack, all right? Because again, we're talking about new applications that generate a lot of data. So, of course, some of our technologies that we already provide the market help, let's say, customers access the data and start, let's say, analyze the data. And obviously, some of those applications can utilize AI. But the objective should be not only to let's say, to automate decision making, but also to educate the customer so that they can actually see the value of all these systems. And also not to mention that, again, shipping is a traditional market, and we still see some hesitation from, let's say, the crew of, how they can use AI. And some people also afraid that, perhaps a new AI system or a data analytics system, pretty much overrides their business decision making, and perhaps these people may even, lose their job. So again, there's a lot of things that are happening right now. And so I guess it's a matter of educating and making sure that the customers pretty much test and validate the outcome of those, let's say, tools, and they see the ROI obviously before they actually start, utilizing them.
All right. We talk a lot about cyber resilience. So the concept of cyber resilience is increasingly replacing the traditional focus, as we said earlier, on cyber protection. What does that shift mean in practical terms for ship owners and operators, and where should they begin?
Yeah, for ship owners and operators, resilience means expanding the conversation beyond how do we keep attackers out to include how do we maintain operation if something, let's say, goes wrong. So as we discussed previously, it requires organizations to understand which are the critical assets. Let's say have a process in place that will help them proactively identify operational dependencies and develop response and recovery plans. So that means that, when something happens, they can ensure that both the vessel and the shore teams can continue functioning under degraded conditions. In practical terms, A resilient organization knows what systems are connected, what data is critical, who is responsible for decision making during an incident, and obviously, let's say key systems become unavailable and what they need to do in terms of the recovery capabilities. Perhaps resilience is not just technology investment, as we mentioned before. It combines secure connectivity and operational visibility and governance and process and training and culture. So the organizations making the greatest progress are those that treat cyber resilience as part of business continuity and operational excellence rather than just a standalone IT initiative. Again, at Tototheo Global, what we believe is that resilience is ultimately about confidence, the confidence to, from one hand, to embrace digital transformation, but knowing that when a disruption happens, the vessel, the crew, and the operation can continue to function, let's say, with safety, effectively, and of course, efficiently.
Okay. In the future right now, looking ahead, what will distinguish the maritime organizations that successfully navigate the next decade of digital transformation from those that struggle to keep pace?
I guess what we said now is that the maritime industry has already entered a period where connectivity, data, AI, cybersecurity becoming increasingly interconnected. So the success will depend on the ability of the organization to integrate those, let's say, elements into a coherent operational strategy rather than treating them as separate initiatives. So the organization that will actually excel or they will lead will view digital transformation as a business transformation, first of all. It is not just a technology upgrade. So there we see, and I'm sure this trend will continue. They will, let's say, invest in modern infrastructure, but at the same time, they will also invest in people and awareness and governance and culture. Of course, the most important, let's say, differentiator, which will play a role, is the resilience. So as digital dependency increases, and whether cyber incidents, connectivity challenges, geopolitical events, which are happening already, supply chain disruptions, will become a very important part of the operating environment. So the most successful companies will be those that can adapt very quickly. And of course, they can maintain operational continuity and recover faster than their competitors. But as we see it in other industries, in shipping as well, it will be the same situation. Data will become the most important defining asset. So those organizations who really, let's say, take into their plan and their transformation, the data integration, the data analysis, and obviously support the decision on the existing data, they will make better decisions. They will improve the efficiency, they will improve their safety, and of course, they will be more competitive. So I guess the most important differentiator will be, again, how much they take seriously the data and how much they have invested in actually putting data at the heart of the organization to make every decision completely data-driven. That's what I believe is going to make the biggest change. And of course, at Tototheo Global, we see that the future belongs to organizations that combine connectivity with data intelligence and resilience. So this is the most important thing that I see that is already happening in the market. And I think as the systems are growing and obviously the speeds of the connectivity are getting higher, there's going to be more data. The most important thing is how actually you take advantage of this data into your daily operations and decisions. And that's where they're going to be the added value at the end of the day for the successful operations and organizations.
Okay, I understand. So from my side, I think that we have fully covered the key topics of our conversation. However, before we close, if there's anything you would like to add, feel free also. I don't know if you are covered.
No, I think we discussed, let's say, many things, and pretty much what's happening right now, and obviously how I see the future. Let's say, how maritime is going to shift in the future, and obviously what are the key critical, let's say, aspects that shipping companies should invest, and what they should consider as important for them to be more competitive and obviously more secure from cyber risk and from an operational perspective. The only thing I would like to highlight is again that our role is definitely to support the customers into this digital transformation journey. Again, there's so many systems and things are shifting very fast. I understand sometimes that from the customer perspective, it's very difficult to really cope with all these changes. And also, what makes more sense for them, where they should invest more time and more money. Because there's so much they can do, especially if you look in markets like, for example, the Greek market, where you have a lot of, let's say, shipping companies. I'm sorry, somebody's buzzing my door. But again, you have some small organizations with like 10, 15, vessels, and you have very small IT departments. So for them, it's important how they can be more strategic, where they should invest their time, but also who is their, let's say, technology provider they should collaborate with to really help them and advise them and support them in this journey.
All right, that's so important to highlight all of this. I would like to thank you so much for this conversation and discussion. Thank you so much for your time and also for your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you.